opportunity to take it back. Can you just take us through the after that situation?
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, the way the contract stipulates, you know, you have a limited amount of time, especially if you get all the way to the back end of the World Series. So, you know, not having really any opportunity beforehand to, you know, have any conversations. The language in the contract stipulates that the conversations started when it was exercised, and we had good conversations as a group, and ultimately decided to you know, just continue along the path that we were at, and you know, yeah, maybe at some point in the future, you know, pick the conversation back up.
Aaron said that after the dust settled on that, you came back and spoke to them about the whole situation. What was your message to them after the fact?
Well, I mean, just the intention wasn't to, you know, the intention wasn't to do anything other than stay. So, and you know, I was happy to be where my feet were back in Yankee Stadium. So,
who else? Andy and Chris.
So you never thought maybe I'll become a free agent? It was always to stay with the Yankees in your mind.
Yeah, once, you know, especially once the conversation started happening after the clause was enacted.
Chris, to the left.
Gerrit, you use your fastball less often than ever before in your career. Just why was that, and where's your confidence in your fastball?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the game is, you know, a constant game of adjustments, and you know, you're trying to make sure that you allocate, you know, the best performing pitches and keep those pitches at a high efficacy. So, you know, the objective is to, you know, throw, you know, whatever it may be on any given day or whatever matches up between any given lineup, and make sure that, you know, those weapons are available for you when your highest leverage situation comes across. So it's kind of a, you know, like I said, it's kind of an evolution, or it's kind of, you know, how are you going to get through the lineup on any given day? Now, you know, with that said, there's a day-to-day thing, there's a year-to-year thing, as you know, physicality changes, or as you know, the identity of the pitch may change, or what the league is doing to pitches that are similar to that. So it's kind of like always evolving. At some points, you know, we shied away from it, but if I can recall, at some points we really jammed a lot of fastballs by. In fact, I think the second game against Kansas City was a good example of throwing, I think, almost over 60% fastballs. So, like, it's never about shying away. It's about always just trying to find the most optimum mix. And we'll see what that optimum mix is this year as we get into spring.
Otis, back left.
You know, obviously, staying where your feet were at Yankee Stadium with the Yankees was important to you, but how important was getting so close to the World Series and winning a World Series, rather? How important was that, you know, like unfinished business for this year with this team?
Yeah, it was a good, you know, it was a good push for us. I mean, you know, we're really proud of, I think, you know, what we did, and at the same time, you know, walked away from the season with a bitter taste in our mouths, and you know, just a real terrible feeling. And you know, as a competitor, you know, you don't enjoy those situations, but you know, every time you step on the field, it makes you tougher. It's another log on your fire that inspires you to, you know, put the work in when no one's watching. You know, it is what fuels you to a certain extent, both winning and failure, right? Like, you're always in pursuit of doing just the best you can, and both those results come, you know, along the way with it. So you try to take advantage of, you know, winning and losing, ultimately to win and achieve your goals. You know, there's a lot of hard work. We hadn't been back to the World Series in over 10 years, and so there's a lot of stuff to be proud of and a lot of business yet to be accomplished.
Meredith to the right, and Greg.
Gerrit, Aaron was just asked if you'd be handled any differently this spring based on last year, and he said you maybe were even throwing sooner this offseason, not putting a ball down. Can you just describe how long you took off and what the thought process was behind that, and maybe tweaking that a little bit?
Yeah, so we built off the return to play protocol that we had during the summer last year, and then obviously with more time in the offseason, you know, we just have taken less risk along the way. You know, there's just more time. So, you know, it's not quite. I think what we did during the season was, you know, maximum efficiency, and but with that comes a certain amount of risk that we were able to handle, and obviously performed well through that. But you know, with the off season having more time, you know, we just added an extra week here, an extra week there. I did start earlier than I have in the last couple of years, maybe, you know, more akin to like some of the earlier years in my career where, you know, I'm still building the domain and trying to build the skill. I've already faced hitters already, and I'm facing hitters again tomorrow. So in that regard, like, you know, in a really good spot comparative to years past, and probably slightly ahead of where we were last year.
Greg in the middle.
Gerrit, one more on the opt out. Was there any frustration from your end that the team didn't add the extra year?
No, I got what I wanted. I want to be here.
Gary to the left and Joel to the right.
Such a great
Going
leader.
back to that, your throwing program and your routine change. You know, some pitchers have moved more towards a year-round cycle. Did you talk to anybody that's already adapted that or experimented with that? Anybody you consulted?
Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of my older friends in the game, you know, have talked about evolving their process, you know, as their career has gone. I mean, not necessarily one direction or the other, but I would say, you know, overall trending towards, you know, keeping the arm live, you know, as we age. And I think, like I said, you know, that concept, but more so the concept of like the blueprint that we wrote during spring and then blueprint that we wrote during summer and then having more time to execute that was probably the main driving factor of the off-season program that we came up with.
Last year, there was a day where you talked for a while about arm injuries in the game and it kind of being an epidemic. Do you think year-round throwing is something, whether you're a younger player, older player, is that something you think could help guys more?
You know, well, it's hard for me to say overgenerally, you know, because I think there's a lot of different variables that go into each individual. You know, but I feel confident in what I've done, and so I mean, I guess I can just speak to myself in that regard, that I'm in a good spot as of now. So so far so good.
Gerrit, since you won the Cy Young, you obviously had an injury to begin last year, and like the rest of the earth, you added a year. Have you made any concessions to any of it, or do you expect to be the Cy Young version of yourself in 25?
Yeah, my expectations are the same.
Bruce in the front row and Randy behind him.
What does it mean to have Max Fried here as a running mate in this rotation?
Yeah, just excellent addition. Really unique talent in a lot of things that he can do with the baseball. An outlier in several regards, and a highly regarded teammate as well. It's been fun to get to know him, you know, through texting and talking over the phone through the off season, and then, you know, the 5 or 6 days that I've been here as well. It's just been a pleasure to watch him go about his work. You know, like all great players, really disciplined guy. Really cares about, you know, his teammates and fitting in and winning. And he takes care of every rep. You can see his focus and his concentration on every time he throws the ball. So he'll set a good example for our young guys, and he'll be a great addition to our club.
You talked a little bit about the disappointment at the end of last year. How driven are you to win it all?
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's just another opportunity, and I think, you know, the older we get, the less and less, you know, we take for granted. You know, so it was an unfortunate way to end the year, but you know, the objective is to take those bad feelings and add more fuel and continue to motivate yourself to just be better. So trying to take the disappointment and use it to our advantage.
Bruce, pass behind you, please. Thank you.
Gerrit, were you upset when Soto left and surprised at all that you turned down that much money to return to the Yankees? And then when you see what the pivot the Yankees did, a lot of people think that this team on paper now might be a better team than last year with Fried, Devin Williams, Goldschmidt, Ellinger.
Yeah, so I mean, I I can't say I was surprised because I didn't really go into any expectations. I mean, I only got to know Juan for 1 year, and he's a magnificent player and a great teammate. But Juan is going to make the best decision for Juan. And you never know. I didn't really know how it was going to shake out. Obviously, we do after the figures come out, but while we're going into it, it's hard to say what exactly is going on from my perspective. So I just tried to remain kind of indifferent and not get my hopes up one way or the other. It is, he's a tremendous player and he was extremely impactful for us, and a joy to watch and a joy to be around. So, Juan will be missed to a certain extent, but, the beauty of the Yankees is the ability to go out and fill the roster and fill the spots, with the goal of getting back to the World Series and winning the World Series again. And they've done about as good a job as I think you could have asked. I think we feel very confident in the additions that we've made. I mean, you've mentioned former MVPs, 2 of them, former Rookie of the Year, one of the best closers in the game, and one of the best left-handed pitchers in the game. I mean, it's hard not to say that those additions haven't made us better, coming from the fact that after we lost Juan, we didn't have Juan, and then we made those additions. So, it's big shoes to fill, but I mean, you gotta be proud of the organization for what they've done, and you got to be excited about the additions that are here because these are all really great players and really great people as well.
Did the money that Soto get shock you at all? Was that long ago? You had the best contract for a pitcher, then you see what Judge got, Ohtani, and is this deferred?
Yeah, it's large. It's a very large amount of money, but it's hard to underestimate great players. It's hard to underestimate Scott too. I mean, he does a good job at what he does. So, and it is a large number. It's a historic contract. It's good for all players. It's good for the game. It's obviously the Mets and the Mets fan base are thrilled about it too. So, it was exciting. It was exciting. I think the anticipation was always about like, how high is it going to get? So, definitely an exciting run.
The front row, right here.
2 questions. How much did you know Max before he signed? Did you have any sort of say in trying to get him to come here? And then just the overall strength of the pitching staff, everybody being healthy, presumably. It's like there's 6 guys maybe. How good can this staff be? And your make up the penalty
Who's coming in the driveway? Know how it was going to shake out. Obviously, we do after the figures come out, but while we're going into it, it's hard to say what exactly is going on from my perspective. So I just tried to remain kind of indifferent and not get my hopes up one way or the other. It is, he's a tremendous player and he was extremely impactful for us, and a joy to watch and a joy to be around. So, Juan will be missed to a certain extent, but the beauty of the Yankees is the ability to go out and fill the roster and fill the spots, with the goal of getting back to the World Series and winning the World Series again. And they've done about as good a job as it was exciting. It was exciting. I think the anticipation was always about like, how high is it going to get? So, definitely an exciting run.
The front row, right here.
2 questions. How much did you know Max before he signed? Did you have any sort of say in trying to get him to come here? And then just the overall strength of the pitching staff, everybody being healthy, presumably. It's like there's 6 guys maybe. How good can this staff be, and your relationship with Max, if it's not from the past, just how it's going to grow?
Yeah, I knew Max, in passing, a couple All-Star games, running by him. And he spent a little bit of time in the upper LA area in high school before he was drafted. I wasn't involved in the process at all. When we signed him, I reached out to a friend of mine that had played with him for the last few years. It gave me a little bit of a download, and right after that, I reached out to Max and kind of started the relationship from there. And like I said, so far so good. I have nothing but positive things to say, both about what kind of person he is and the attributes that he brings from a talent perspective and a performance perspective. Watching him from a distance and then watching how he goes about his work lately. So, I mean, as far as how good we're going to be, I mean, we get asked that question every year, and it looks really good on paper. But in the end, it's who's performing the best at the end of the year, and that can be any given team at any given time. But we certainly like the position that we put ourselves in come today. You said it right. Everybody is feeling good, and that's a great place to start. And we have a lot of talent and a lot of good teammates, and that's also a great place to start.
Eric.
Gerrit, what was your reaction to some of the comments that some Dodgers players made after the World Series?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of buzz about it, but I personally haven't looked at really exactly what has or hasn't been said, or I think the general consensus is that it's obviously created a question and some sort of talking points going forward. When you can win, or when you win rather, you can choose to handle how you win and however you choose. If we were to win the World Series, I wouldn't necessarily maybe handle it exactly like some of their players. But again, I don't have any control over them. And they played really well in the World Series and deserve to win. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
Take a couple more. Jake, did you have a question? You pass it behind you.
Almost a year removed now from the injury you had last spring training. When you kind of look back on the time you spent away and that process, that experience of having a significant injury like that kind of during the peak of your career, how do you interact with that time off? How do you look back on it?
I mean, I try to use it to my advantage. I try to bring a different perspective to the game. I think I learned a lot of things in terms of nuance, in terms of being removed from the daily grind of the team, and then going back into that. You're not on the road with them for 10, 11 days. You're not exactly sure of what the vibe is in the clubhouse, or how tired guys are, or how guys are feeling specifically. And then you come in kind of with a fresh set of eyes after just tossing at the field with Joe. And it actually, it taught me a little bit of how I can apply, some of that relaxation a little bit to watching the game and more of the human element, how people are doing and checking in with people. And there's no real way to quantify that, or there's no real way to quantify, how much of a hello or just a genuine how are you doing affects people. But coming from a place where I was receiving that from my teammates, and then I was getting a perspective of being away from the club and playing with my kids and watching them at night with my kids, I gained something from it. It's hard for me to put exactly into words what it is, but I think I kind of became a little bit more connected to the love of the game, and the love of just being around your teammates, and the beauty of watching some of the great players that we have, not watching Juan and Aaron and some of these guys play every day, and then getting to be in the front row of the dugout. It's like, you check yourself about how blessed you are when you get back into that situation when you're removed.
Take the last one right behind you, Jim. Yeah.
Hey, Gerrit, when a high-level pitcher like Max comes into your team, how much do you enjoy picking his brain and vice versa?
Yeah, Max has come from an organization that is, obviously has deep roots in pitching, going back to the days that inspired really my generation of how to throw with Greg Maddox and John Smoltz and Tom Glavine. And I think they really, stick to some of those kind of old school core principles, and they've obviously ingrained a lot of those things in Max. So his perspective from, a storied franchise, and a franchise that, is obviously well renowned for pitching, provides a lot of opportunity for me and my teammates to learn from Max and from his experiences and from his development along the way. It's been unique, and it's been different than what I've experienced in some regards, and similar in other regards, right? So, it's just exciting to be around a pitcher of that caliber. And the things that you can learn or improve with a player like that right by your side is up to you how much you take advantage of it. And so the conversations that we have on a daily basis, hopefully will bleed into better performance for everybody that's around us. And that's what we've learned, that's what we knew about Max is, how curious and inquisitive he is about the game and detail oriented he is about the game. He's got some real convictions on pitch sequencing, and obviously has performed at the highest level in the biggest moments. So not only is his talent, a blessing for us, but his mind is as well. So really excited to share those thoughts and to be a big advocate of him going forward.
Wow, literally listening to Gerrit Cole's press conference for spring training was pretty interesting. He talked about Juan Soto, but he also talked about everything else. Gerrit Cole's a really smart leader, and he's a smart pitcher, and literally he is a dominant player. So I think he's going to have a really good season. He's going to stay healthy, but also I think the impact he's going to have on Max Fried is definitely going to help the team win. And also, Max Fried is going to have a really good positive impact on Gerrit Cole and helping him stay healthy. And for him to win another Cy Young. But honestly, it's a really great player overall. And honestly, I think he could help the team win over 100 games or more. And honestly, I think it's going to help out the team very well. And I think it's going to help the team win in general. So I think it's going to be really great. So I think that if the Max Fried effect happens, then the Gerrit Cole effect happens on each other, it's definitely going to help the team win. And just listening to Gerrit Cole's press conference was really good. He really had a really great press conference. He's been getting ready since the end of the offseason. He talked about his opt-out situation that he had when he had it earlier in the offseason. But honestly, it's good that he returned as a Yankee. He said he wanted to be a Yankee, and he wanted to be a Yankee instead. He did not want to leave the Yankees or go anywhere else. He wanted just to stay with the Yankees, and he opted to stay in, which is really great.